The match of a retirement plan could be a problem because it could incentivize you to put money in a plan that you have little control over, no cash flow from, higher taxes in the future, a bunch of fees that might be ruining your performance, and you might have other things that you could use that money for that is better, or paying off a 20% interest rate credit card, or building up your liquidity, or acquiring a business, or investing in your education. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. Is there a real tax advantage to funding your 401k or retirement plan? Does it make sense to keep contributing with the economy in the shape it is right now? What if you actually have other options or other places that you might be having as an alternative to allocate your cash? Today's question is about comparing real estate to retirement plans. What are the pros and cons, and what makes more sense? All right, Stelba.
Let's do this. I
used to call you Chief of Staff Stolba. That was just Stelba. And I actually call you Stolva.
Stolva, yeah.
Just to throw people off. They can't find you, you know.
I think it's fun when we give each other nicknames. I'm not very great.
I like when you call me Gunderson. It's funny.
Just by
Nobody
your last
calls
name.
me Gunderson. Just you.
Yeah, that just is my lack of creativity around a nickname. So I just use your last name. No. Question, since we're going to talk a little bit about retirement today.
Yeah. Retirement sucks.
How would you say retirement sucks a lot, and I get behind that.
Why do I use sucks so much? Budgeting sucks. Retirement sucks. Like, look, my dad was a coal miner.
401k sucks.
Retirement was a good idea. He was a coal miner. You should retire from that.
Yeah.
But what if you created a life you didn't want to retire from?
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be lovely?
What if you didn't remove value creation from your equation?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was still about serving others and solving problems and keeping a sharp mind even into your later age? I mean, my son just did stand up making fun of me. He says, I don't think people are old other than my dad. I'm like, well, guess who pays the bills around here, son? And we're just going to turn them off in your room. And you'll be like, oh, it's super cold this winter. That's fine everywhere else, man. So yeah, I mean, retirement is this notion that if we were in the industrial age, trading time for money, doing very physically demanding jobs and exhausting ourselves, that sure, you want to retire from that. But what if you could use your brain instead of your brawn? What if you could find something that leveraged your skill sets in a way that you got paid and you got to enjoy the majority of that? It's not that it's always going to be perfect and cozy and comfy, but like I have things that I wouldn't, like I'm not getting paid for some of the things I do right now because they're just so exciting, and it's not the time because of COVID to actually release them, but it's just part of the enjoyment of life. And I see the big picture and where it's going, and I don't want to stop doing that. It's the things that I love the most, you know? Right. And I want the world to have that. It doesn't mean that we're passionate and our passion always pays off. Sometimes our passion can be misleading because it's merely a hobby. Mm-hmm. No one's going to pay me to shoot my bow, right? Stoba, I don't think people are going to pay me to make them coffee. Maybe, but probably not the amount of money that I'm used to earning.
That's an expensive
So it's fine to have hobbies, but if we can find some purpose, if we could find some value, if we could find a vision that's compelling enough that we didn't want to retire from that, that's such a compelling way to live life. So I want to redefine retirement. I got a buddy, Derek Coburn, that's writing a book on how to like redefine retirement. So nice. I like that that's getting out there into the world. And, you know, like I just think there's a lot of possibility when we take people that are losing 30 years of their productive years. How many times, like when I was in Italy, could I have a 4-hour lunch before I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool to write something, or it'd be cool to record a podcast. Like there's a place for all of that, but it doesn't have to be separated and segmented. It could be part of your entire life where you're taking these mini retreats and retirements and you're coming back into some work that you enjoy. And that takes work to set up that type of life. That's why economic independence is vital. Enough recurring revenue from your assets to cover your basic expenses so you have freedom to make those choices versus the one day, someday, and then you're too old. Like, hell, I'm 42 and I'm starting to have a few issues. So I'm like, damn, what if I wait till I'm 82? Well, you know what it is. So
we'll just leave it at that. I like the premise of taking mini retirements along the way, not just waiting for a big vacation in June or retirement when you're 50 or 65, whenever that happens for you, or maybe 80, depending on.
Is it hard to manage my schedule with as many mini retirements as I take along the way?
You are very good at taking
my boys to a wilderness program.
But that's all meaningful and good, you know.
Just went hunting.
Yeah.
Which now people are going to be angry that I used the word hunting.
Yeah, I think, well.
My buddy I went with, Bedman, he posted a picture and got 300 comments, and like 30 of them were death threats to his family and his kids. Oh, no. I was like, whoa. I don't post about that stuff.
Just on YouTube now. That idea of like, let's build a life that we don't want to escape from. It does take intention. It does take work. It takes creativity. And even if you're not
being uncomfortable, it requires turbulence. It requires stretching and growth. And there's fear that comes along with it. There's frustration that happens. And if we try to avoid that, we lose our life. Like you're powerful enough to face it.
Yeah, go through.
I'm just telling you right now, you're powerful enough to face it, Stolba.
I take it.
I mean, you work with me, you got to be fairly powerful to face it.
I got some resilience in me. Yeah, that's great.
Right.
I think just one simple way, I'll share an example that I did. Even if you're not financially independent and you can't plan like large trips at this point in your life, which I know a lot of people are there. There's this book that I've really liked. It's called The Artist's Way.
Killing Sacred Cows? Oh, I love that book.
I love that book too. But this one is...
Oh, Billionaire's Method? Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
This one's The
5 Day
Artist's
Weekend?
Way. Listen to me.
I have The Artist's Way.
It's
It's
very
on my
powerful.
shelf in my bedroom.
Pick up the book,
It's
The
better if
Artist's
you
Way.
read it, though, than just buy it. It look cool when it's sitting there.
And one of the things that she says is take yourself out on an artist date once a week. So it's hard to do that now. But
Did you see what's in my calendar now?
No.
Artist time. Did you see I put artist time in there?
I did notice that. I did notice that. But that's something that I started doing where, okay, I'm going to ride the scooters to my favorite coffee shop and buy the really expensive drink that I normally think is overpriced. Or I'm going to go to a
You like it more than my coffee shop?
I like yours more because
the
it's
espresso
free.
machine right there.
But just like I bought a slack line, you know.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's a big rope you tie between trees and you try to walk across it.
Oh.
You know, like people do this across the
So
Grand
I should
Canyon.
just expect there's times you're like, hey, I can't work. My collarbone's broken. I'm prepared.
I got pretty good on it the last time. But there are
Keep
little
it that
ways.
far off the ground, Stelba.
Just a couple of inches. But the artist date was a way that I made an obligation to myself when big trips weren't
And I
on
can't
the calendar.
paint, but I still consider myself an artist.
Yeah, we have
writing,
to broaden
it's-
our definition of artist.
Yeah,
It's
like
not just about
going fishing. It could be,
dancing, learning to sing, play
Foosball.
an instrument, foosball.
yeah, playing my
Art and
guitar,
foosball. Okay.
smoking my tobacco pipe. That's very artistry.
I don't know.
Douchey,
about that
maybe.
one.
I don't know which one it is. Yeah.
Let's get to Jared's question because
Oh, we're doing a podcast
the
today?
reason why
I thought
we're
we were
not
just having a
chit-chatting
conversation.
about our lives today. So the reason why we started with retirement was because in Jared's question, he mentions a 401k. And, that's a lot of people's plan to get to retirement. But here's what Jared wants to ask us. He says, my company, ExxonMobil, just announced they'd been suspending the company match starting October 2020. Considering the pathetic performance of ExxonMobil stock over the last decade or so, I'm trying to understand the value of continuing to put my money into my 401k. I have 5 rental properties now that have equity greater than the value of my 401k.
Sweet.
And the cash flow, sorry, my computer turned off. There we go.
That's a new computer I got you that you never use. I like it.
I need to set the timer so the screen doesn't go off.
Okay.
Should I discontinue my contribution and redirect the $1,500 a month towards either paying those rentals off or buying new properties or paying off my primary residence?
Okay, so let's talk about tax advantages of real estate versus retirement plans, because people think retirement plans are tax advantage, but they're tax deferred.
That's a big myth.
So yes, you pay less tax this year, but you still have to pay the tax when you take it out. So some people are like, well, yeah, but that grows to more money. Well, that's true. It would grow to more money, but
taxes are going to be higher in
taxes
the
might be
future.
higher. And look, if you have a Roth IRA versus a traditional, that Roth, even though you put less money in it because it's after tax, by the time you pull the money out of the 401k, it ends up being the same if taxes remain level. So if taxes go down, the 401k would actually be better than the Roth IRA, right? If taxes go up, the Roth would be better than the 401k. Yeah. And if taxes stay the same, it makes no difference after you spend the money. Because one's tax-free on the back end, one's pre-tax and taxable on the back end. So that same money you didn't pay the government today, right? If you're in a 401k, becomes the chunk that comes out when you go to spend the money that didn't have to come out of the Roth. So not a lot of people can understand that, but let's look at retirement plans versus real estate. So real estate, you get appreciation on that property if it grows, and that appreciation isn't going to have taxes other than potential increase in your property tax. Okay. You get to depreciate real estate, especially if it's commercial property. There's something called cost segregation that allows you to accelerate depreciation, which is a tax formula that lets you to get deductions now. And if you just sell that outright, you'd have to pay the tax when you sell it outright, but you get these tax advantages along the way. So that's another piece. And if you spend more than 750 hours a year in real estate, you get to be a real estate professional, which gives you unlimited amounts that you could write that off versus some of the limitations with alternative minimum tax or, just standard real estate depreciation. So you get depreciation. And when you sell real estate, it's a capital gain. Capital gain can be 0, 15, or 20%, where when we look at, ordinary income, it can be as high as 37.5%. So this is the problem. If you put money in a retirement plan, you defer the tax and you still have to pay it when you pull it out, you're going to have to pay it at ordinary income, where this real estate would be capital gains, which for most people is going to be a lot lower. Yeah. There's also the advantage with real estate that you could borrow your equity, and when you have a loan, there's no tax to access that money because it's with a loan instead of a sale or a transaction. You also have the fact that with real estate, you can 1031 and roll it to another property. That's a like-kind exchange, and there would be no tax upon that sale. Okay. And if it's a primary residence, you can sell it for up to $250,000 of gain per person, up to 2 people if you're married. So it would be $500,000 if you're married with no tax on the gain. So you have up to $500,000 that you could sell tax-free if it's a primary residence. That doesn't work for rental real estate. But we look at the tax advantages being numerous and more substantial with real estate versus a retirement plan, in my mind. And here's the thing. When you're older, as my kids would say that I am, and then let's say I have a $150,000 in a retirement plan and I'm contributing $5,000 a year. Most of the fuel of that retirement plan over the next 10 years is from the $150,000 that's already in there. The $5,000 I put in per year is getting less and less time to grow each year that I deposit it. Yeah. So there's not a lot of leverage. Right. But check this out. What if I bought a property, right? And it's going to be small if I'm saying $5,000 a year, but what if I bought a property for $5,000 a year? Well, I'm now getting the full value of the property to appreciate because I have a loan. So I'm getting leverage. And even if it's only, let's say that property is $75,000, I'm getting 3% of $75,000. So, or let's just say this isn't real reality, but let's say it's 10%. So I get, 10% appreciation one year. That's now $7,500 of appreciation. But if I contribute $5,000 to a retirement plan and get 10%, it's only $500.
Yeah, that's a great example.
So that's an example of leverage. But here's what I want to warn people about. A lot of people over leverage real estate. They don't have a tenant for a while, and now they're sucking wind. They're losing cash flow, or they have to take care of some unexpected surprise. A water heater goes out, or a pipe bursts in the winter, and so there's these additional costs that sometimes people don't account for. Yeah. So it is going to be a lot more active with real estate than maybe it is with the retirement plan. You have more control, you have more tax advantages, you have a little bit more influence, but you also have more risk for a lot of people because now you have a loan if you didn't pay cash for it, and if you have to fund that loan, during times that there's turnover with tenants or issues, that could really be detrimental and lead to bankruptcy in the worst case scenario. So I'm kind of trying to give both sides here. I'm obviously not a huge fan of retirement plans. I'm an advocate for the right person to do real estate. I don't love real estate. Yeah. When I did real estate,
seems like a lot.
It was no fun. I remember on Halloween, we're getting phone calls and we're like, oh God, this is, I remember being in Tucson and I'm closing on this property and the whole time I'm on vacation, I'm on the phone, and I'm not on the phone with people that we're having fun with and laughing about or helping them with their life. I'm on the phone with someone that we're dealing with legalese and details and timelines and banks and trust companies. And I got to go get a notary while I'm on vacation. You know what I'm saying? It could be a little bit of a nuisance, but if that's what your business is, that's what your business is. So now you kind of know the difference between the two. And the match can be a problem for people. Yeah, the match of a retirement plan can be a problem because it could incentivize you to put money in a plan that you have little control over, no cash flow from, higher taxes in the future, a bunch of fees that might be ruining your performance, and you might have other things that you could use that money for that is better, or paying off a 20% interest rate credit card, or building up your liquidity, or acquiring a business, or investing in your education. I have a bit of an argument there for us.
You've thought about this a little bit.
Maybe.
Now, so the match, I've heard you say it's not free money. A lot of people say well, it's free money. Why wouldn't I do that?
Well, they'll say it's 100% return. Yeah. But once again, if you have 150 grand in there and you put 5,000 in and they match you 5,000, they're only matching your contribution, not the existing amount of money. So to get a true 100% rate of return, they'd have to match everything every year. Yeah. It's only, so I've seen and analyzed, and we'll bring on our money nerd, Tim. Okay. Yeah. and he'll
runs the
show
numbers.
that you might get a 7% return without the match over 10 years, but with the match, it might only move it to 8.5 or 8.9% because most of that money is fueled by the existing dollars already there, not by the new contribution.
It's not like it's doubling your money.
And there might be 5 years before you're fully vested. So, and it might be that there's a lot of strings attached with you, if that vesting, that you have to be in a job that you don't like. And so you are your greatest asset, not a stock, not a bond, not a match, not a piece of real estate. So if that prevents you from investing in yourself and improving your cash flow or paying off high interest rate loans or taking care of really critical things that help you to be more productive, then that match is a deterrent. And so that notion of free money, it's not free because it comes with major strings attached. You can't get to till 59.5. The market could go down after you put it in there and you have less than what you put in. So yeah. There you go.
Yes.
There's my rants for today. Look, getbudgetingsucks.com. It's super low investment. I know sometimes on YouTube people get pissed, like, oh, someone's selling me a book. And look, I'm selling you putting more money in your pocket. It's like $3 or $6 to get this thing, and it's going to navigate. How do you keep more of what you make? How do you pay less in tax legally and interest and investment fees that aren't performing and insurance costs that are duplicate coverages? And how do you create an automated system so you don't have to budget and you free up your mindset so you can be more productive? It's a really good book. I know I wrote it, so that seems a little bit self-serving, but budgetingsucks.com. Let's build an even more of a bridge of a relationship because I'm helping you turn your thoughts into profits and build the life you love.
What's a good alternative for 401ks for employees?
Yeah, so we actually, I remember years ago, I got brought in and brought 2 guys from the team 2 different times to these organizations. And they were organizations that didn't want to offer 401ks. And so here's what was cool. We did cash flow optimization for the employees. And one of them wanted to have this lake home, but was going to wait 5 to 7 years into retirement. We were able to get that for them immediately. That became the plan. I'm like, why wait 7 years? You get to enjoy it along the way. And there's a little bit of leverage because here's the thought process. This was someone that was 5 to 7 years away from retiring. New deposits into a 401k when you're 5 years out from retirement don't have much time to grow. Mm-hmm. But the thought was, what if this real estate even appreciated 3% a year? It's 3% of a much bigger amount. And so the 401k for 5 years compared to that for 5 years couldn't even compete. So that person went to be an advocate. There was another person that was a chief learning officer. We freed up $750 a month in restructuring loans through cash flow optimization. Now, the thing about a 401k when you're an employer offering something to an employee, the good news is a lot of them may not want to go and do this for themselves, and so it gets them to save something. But sometimes it gets them to save money at the expense of paying off high interest rate loans. Sometimes it gets them to save money before they built up their own personal liquidity. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it gives them a false sense of security that they're going to have some retirement, but the amount of money that are in these plans are not near enough to actually get people to retire. So I have a first question for most of the population right now. Why do we want to retire? Retirement came from an industrial age where people were in assembly lines, where they were working 7 days a week, where we had worker deaths, where it required unions to come in to save their lives, which those got pretty inefficient over time, but I understood why they started. And so, look, if you're in a job that you hate, maybe the new definition of retirement is, what if you found something you enjoyed? I get that it's work. I get it's not easy to find that. And it might even take going back to some level of education, which might not require like education with a college, but a skill set that you can develop so you could bring that to the world. Because I found that by really investigating like what I wanted in life, I got to a point in 2005 where I'd created a very nice income and lifestyle. But to make the transition to what I really want to do, I had to give up recurring revenue and renewals and walk away from that, which was hard because we were kind of at a place that was like, cool. And now I'm like, okay, now we're starting over to create economic independence, but I want to choose a path that I'm excited about, something I don't want to retire from. So that's one question. The second thing is with the 401k, I get it, that automation's really nice, but is it really helpful? Mm-hmm. This notion of golden handcuffs, I don't believe in golden handcuffs. Do you want someone stuck there because of the benefits, even though they don't want to be there? There's a 60% disengagement for American employees right now. Yeah, 60% are disengaged in their work. That's golden handcuff type of philosophy.
Yeah, and then we're talking about, there's vesting periods for these retirement accounts that, you get a vesting schedule of 3 to 5 years so you can take part of the match, that sort of thing too. So you're talking about a pretty significant amount of time that you have some of these employees that are still with you, right?
Yeah. Years ago, I wrote an article for Forbes. And in that article, it wasn't my content. I interviewed someone because they had developed a program for organizations to match paying down a student loan. So if someone put 3% of their income towards a student loan, the employer could match the 3% just like they might a 401k. And I feel like paying off a student loan right now is so much more valuable to the psyche than trying to fund a retirement plan. And look, that might be heresy from a financial person.
Well, I don't think so. So, my girlfriend right now is looking at all of her student loans, and the interest rate for those student loans are more than a car is, more than a mortgage is.
What kind of interest rate are we talking about?
Right now, about 6 to 7%.
6 to 7%. If we look at what the market actually does, take the 90s out and look at the market in any other 10-year period, you're going to be better off paying off a loan with certainty. It can improve your cash flow. You're getting a guaranteed savings versus a non-guaranteed earnings.
Yes.
So it really comes down to personal preference. If an employer really wants to do the best for the employee, it's about getting them one-on-one time to build a customized plan. And if you want to match, guess what? If you match them on any of the customized plan, whether it's paying off loans or the own types of investments that they want to get into, it's still the same write-off for the employer.
Cool.
It just takes a little more time, a little more responsibility. But this is why we've been talking with firms that actually have video training for the employees on doing these things. Like we've had enough. Remember when we went to ShopFix?
Yeah.
And it was like the question, because those people really cared about their employees.
Absolutely.
And they wanted the answer. But there's not a quick fix right now. Just say, no, this is as automatic as a 401k. But if you just take a little bit of time, give them some education, give them some support, and then find out what's best for them, you can choose to contribute as much or as little as you would have with the 401k.
Cool.
All right, what's the next part of this question?
That's a really good lead into, I'm going to combine two of these questions. The first one is, what are other options outside of investing in the market or real estate that people could look at? And then this follow-up question with this is, how do I know my investor DNA? These are kind of two of the same, in the same vein.
The biggest opportunity, if people are willing to switch from a passive mindset to a more active mindset. Now, I'm saying an active mindset with the thought of recurring revenue. See, the stock market is a set it and forget it, and unfortunately has a false sense of, I'm going to do really well, and it just has let people down for far too long. These people that say it's average 10%, I don't know the last time they calculated it, but they're far off.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a video with Tim Carden where we analyzed the 15 days of volatility right when the market started to be volatile with the coronavirus, and we found that the average return versus what actually happened was quite a bit different because of volatility, because of fees. And so there's this, I have a problem with that. But if you're willing to be a little bit active, Tim is in the middle today. He was going to be on video with us, but he's buying a business and he's closing on that business in which he has the opportunity to get 100% return on investment in the first 12 months. It's a private business. It's a small business, less than $1 million of revenue. This is where the opportunity is. It's the massive opportunity. You can look at it. You can make contribution to it. You have influence over it. You're not just setting it and handing it over to someone else. And we're going to see these deals pop up more and more because in the type of crazy economy that we're facing right now, there's a lot of people that are running very thin margins and really struggling with their cash flow. And human beings, especially small businesses, don't usually act quick enough. Because they're looking at a human being and it's hard for them to fire them if there's a cash crunch. We had someone that you brought into the Wealth Factory program that South by Southwest cost him $182,000 when it got canceled.
Just getting crushed with the event space right now.
Right. So it's like, yeah, that's a big deal for a business. So right now, people with cash are willing to get cash or using their retirement funds to buy these businesses can actually be a winning scenario for both parties. Because otherwise these businesses could be gone. And look, as a customer, not having a business around impacts us. For that person that now lost their money month by month and tried to struggle to make it through, they could lose everything that they've worked for. So it's really time, if you have a cash position, if you've got a lot of money in a retirement plan, even if the market's been down 20% on your accounts, well, what if you can go buy a business at a 30% discount and you can get cash flow from it right now and you have control over some of the outcome versus these other things? These are the things to start considering because the stock market, if people are struggling with what's happening right now with the volatility, maybe the stock market wasn't the right place for them to put the money in the first place. Because this is part of what the stock market does.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't have the stomach for it.
Okay. So this is, how would you recommend, or how would you explain to somebody how they really find their investor DNA? Because this is a really good time to explore that right now.
Yeah. Investor DNA is our core values. So when we value something, we tend to hold it dear or pay attention to it, or right. And then second, what's our core drivers? What are the things that create that interest in it at a deeper level, that we have a fascination and a curiosity, and it's the things that we want to learn about and talk about. And then the key is to add core competencies. Where do we actually have ability? A lot of people are investing in places they have no ability, no way to analyze. They're relying on experts, but the problem is most of the experts they're relying upon are more salespeople than they are experts. They're expert and helping people move their money into something. They're expert in telling a story that might not be part of reality. They're expert in building rapport, right? But is their expertise in really good at knowing what's going on? It's like your parents had their investment advisor say, it depends, the market depends on how long the media is willing to keep up this news. I'm like, whoa. Blaming it on the media, is it that fragile? Is it that fragile?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the media. It's simply that we're dealing with emotions, number one, but the thing that people don't see is you're dealing with bigger players that are making moves that move the market when they buy or sell or change a position, that the average investor doesn't have that type of influence or control.
Well, these are the times that we see people like the Warren Buffetts of the world or whatever that are making massive investments in companies, right? Because these are the moments that they wait for, right?
Right. If they've got the cash and that business has good enough infrastructure, but maybe isn't lean enough, maybe hasn't been managed to the same degree, because people get tired over time.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes a fresh set of eyes could be extraordinarily helpful. So when I look at investor DNA, it's about focus instead of diversification. It's focus on what you know. What are you going to become expert in? Some people are so good at real estate, others are not. A few people are great at the stock market, the majority are not. Some people are good at buying businesses, others have no clue what's going on there. So if you're not willing to take a bigger stake in your results, cash flow banking to me is the only answer, because if you're going to be truly passive, be somewhere where it's not going to participate in the downside. You might not get huge returns. It might be 5% after, fees, but with tax advantages, and essentially do better than a savings account. But there's a lot of people that are investing that are getting much lower than 5% with volatility, with risk, It's concerning, it's frustrating, and we just have too much misinformation. Yeah. The misinformation is the market has always averaged 8%, 10% since 2000 BC is what I like to say. But it's like
whoever knows, or whoever just pulls these numbers out.
Watch the volatility videos we have on YouTube. You'll see as we dispel that, as we show with Tim Carden. If you look up those videos, the videos that show the 10 years in the market, what the actual returns were. Yeah. So this set it and forget it is going to have people continue to be in dismay, because then they find a situation where it's volatile. They don't know how to control it. They don't know what's going on. They're going, all this hard work is now going down the drain with things that are outside of my influence. Investor DNA means we've got to take an active stance in our life, figure out what we're good at investing in. Some are good. Once again, risk isn't in the investment. It's in you, the investor. Investor DNA puts the odds in your favor to be more knowledgeable about where you invest. And if you don't know your investor DNA, you're simply gambling. You're gambling and speculating, hoping that it's going to work out. And look, I did this early on in my career where I invested in real estate, and because it went really well, I thought it was because of my genius. It was just my timing. It's just when I happened to do the investment, it worked out. I found out it wasn't genius when all of a sudden the market changed. I was like, oh, wait, this requires real knowledge in order to navigate chaotic times. Yeah. And that's what we're in. This is about 401ks today, and especially those people that are, nearing retirement or in retirement. What can they do with their plans? We've got a series of questions. I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Okay, we're going to start with a question from Samuel. My wife is about to receive money from my 401k and was wondering how this may affect her student loan payment. So she's currently paying around $100 a month, and she's set to receive, I think that says $140,000 after taxes. So will this cause her payments to increase for her student loans?
So it depends on which state she's in, or if it's a state loan, a federal loan. Like or is she on a plan that's a graduated plan where you pay less when you make a certain amount of money and then it goes up over time? So there's not a super clean answer there other than make a phone call and ask, to be honest with you. Like it depends on who the loan's from. Is it like, so Sally Mae turned into Navient, and then there's the MyFed loan that like there's 100 places a student loan could be from, and then a bunch of private banks. So it's like, well,
Who do they call? Just whoever the
loan came
service
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're on like a graduated payment program, then yes might be the answer. And if you're on a level payment program, then no.
Even if it does, get the money, you know, maybe pay the thing down, depending on what your options are.
So typically on student loans, Garrett does something at Wealth Factory called the cash flow index. Typically on student loans, they're actually really efficient as far as the interest rate.
You take the loan balance divided by the minimum payment.
Yeah.
Loan balance divided by minimum payment spits out a number. If it's greater than 100, it's efficient. Yep. It's less than 50, it's inefficient. And if it's in between, it's in the danger zone.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's kind of, I would ask some questions and then I would start there and say, is this an efficient loan? Should I pay it off or should I not?
All right. Stoba, what's next?
All right. This one's coming in from Michael H. He has a 401k. He's wanting to redirect it. Obviously, a lot of these people writing in also are wanting to avoid penalties. So that'll be a part of our conversation. But he says he has a large sum of money in banks, which he believes is not safe. What should I do? Do I roll it over into a life insurance company? He was saying that on Money Revealed that the Roth IRA seemed to be like a upper poor class plan. So he's just wanting to know what to do instead.
An upper poor class plan. Let's just start on the safety of the money. So, and then we can kind of tackle his questions one by one. Safety of the money. Well, banks do have FDIC insurance, or if it's a credit union, they have the equivalent that's insured up to $250,000 of, it's not really the government that backs it. It's like an institution where a bunch of these institutions pool their money. And then if someone fails, they try and pay everyone back. The life insurance thing, completely different story, right, Garrett? Like we completely agree on this. These are companies that I don't say never fail, but especially if it's a mutual company, we're talking about companies that have been in business for 150 plus years and have just never not paid anyone.
Yeah, I'd say banks are fairly safe unless they're maybe some of the big ones that finance all the major things in our country.
Yep.
Like I feel, even if they weren't as safe, I mean, companies like Chase and Wells Fargo, they're going to be around. And if they're not around, we're all in a lot of trouble. Yep. Where a regional bank might go out of business and it's not even big news. Where these insurance companies, so rare for them to fail. And I mean, we've got Utah Guarantee Life Association, I've heard, has never been tapped into, which is like the FDIC for insurance companies.
Correct. Yeah, it's never been tapped into, including in 2008 when one of our companies that were life insurance company in Utah failed, but it didn't fail.
Just got bought out by another company.
Got bought out because they're like, this is going to fail. And then you have to think about it from kind of the insurance industry perspective. They don't want the name of their whole industry to be like, oh, these guys don't pay benefits. So it's like, so they'll step in and take care of.
Yeah. People say, what happens when the life insurance companies fail? I'm like, you better have commodities and food storage, because it's going to be a pretty ugly situation for the whole economy at that point.
People kind of ask me that when they buy life insurance policies, and I'm like, well, you might actually be growing your own food at that point. So like
in the bunker, how's that sound? You just got to store your corn.
I can do that.
You're going to have plenty of the corn. So.
All right. What else we got?
I'll trade my corn for your elk.
Well, with my ability to shoot this year, you might be starving with me.
I think there were a couple more questions in his.
Yeah. So Michael, what we're saying is life insurance companies are very dependable. It would be a good plan for him
especially mutual ones.
Yeah, redirect his 401k in that direction.
Can't quite directly roll it over like you would a normal IRA.
So does he need to take his money from his 401k, roll it over into a Roth IRA before he does that, or what does that transition look like?
Even there, that's going to trigger a tax.
A tax event. Yeah. So I mean, if you're really have hit the point where you've made a decision that, hey, I'm going to move this 401k money over to a life insurance policy, well, plan on tax and penalty happening unless you're at over 59 and a half. Like it's just going to be part of the equation.
You might do that over time, not all up front in that year. You know, you're going to be taking it out and putting it into a plan that's after tax. You know, you're not putting money into life insurance pre-tax 99.99% of the time. Yeah. And the few that do are just basically moving it to another type of 401k type of plan where they're going to pay tax on the back end. So I don't really recommend that.
Yeah, where Garrett and I have discussed like real estate in an IRA or a 401k, like there are certain benefits that go away as soon as you do life insurance in a retirement plan.
It's expensive.
You're doing the same sort of thing where it's like, well, why did you buy it then?
So, you know, if you hate paying tax now, you're still going to hate paying tax later, maybe even more. And so create tax strategy around it. And we have a lot of videos on tax strategy on my YouTube channel, you know, so if you subscribe there, you can watch those videos and find out what offsets are. But in and of itself, the plan doesn't come with real tax benefit. It's tax deferral.
Okay.
Yep. Roth IRA, a little bit better because it's under current law. You're going to pull it out tax free, but you're funding it after tax. Now, Ryan, there's a lot of people that believe that, oh, well, you're better off going pre-tax because then in the future you'll end up with more money than if you go post-tax and it's tax-free. But the reality is if taxes stayed exactly the same, it would be the exact same scenario. You'd look like you had more money in the traditional IRA that was pre-tax, but when you go to pull it out, you're going to pay taxes. Like, yeah, but then, you know, what if I had all that time where it compounded and it grew? Well, so did the tax. Yeah. Compound interest equals compound tax. That's something to remember.
The government still gets their slice of the pie.
Right.
No matter what. And I guess I can understand a scenario where for certain people, mentally it feels better. Oh, look, I have $1 million instead of I have $1 million instead of 600,000.
Yep.
You know? Yep. And it's like, well, no, you actually have 600,000. The other 400,000 is the government.
So it just doesn't look like it until you go to spend it. And then it's like, oh, there they are. There they are. They're still there for you. They'll got your back when it comes to collection of tax. You don't ever have to worry about that stuff. But they have your back.
100% guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
One of the few countries in the world where you can actually go to prison for not paying your taxes.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Definitely. So I guess one of my clarifying questions is when someone's ready to redirect or cash out their 401k, what is that process? How long does that process take? Is this something that's going to take them a month or 6 months?
Yeah. So cashing out is kind of like the big question, right? I have this big bucket of cash and I want to pull it all versus like periodic payments or something that way. That it's kind of two different scenarios. But back to what Garrett said, the government gets their slice on the way out, whether you take $1,000 a month forever or all of it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But when it comes out, it does come out as regular income. So whatever the tax rates are at that point, when you pull it out, you just made that amount and it'll be treated like a salary. So even if you're done working altogether and retired, you pull $100,000 out tomorrow. Congratulations, you just made $100,000.
And if you're just taking a withdrawal from your existing plan, it's going to be pretty quick that you can get that money. But if you're doing a rollover, 30 to 90 days.
So it depends on where the money is and how far you're going, like away from where the money currently is.
It's no longer going to be at Fidelity. It's going to take longer.
Correct. Okay. Like half the time, and I'll just use Fidelity since you brought up.
And you worked there back in the day.
That too. But like if your 401k is at Fidelity, rolling your money from a 401k at Fidelity to an IRA at Fidelity might be 3 days.
Yeah.
But if you're taking it from Fidelity to Schwab, guess what?
What's the longest it's taken you with the client moving from one company to another?
About 6 months.
6 months. So that's 6 months. 6 months. And what's the best case scenario going from one company to another?
Probably like a week and a half.
Ooh, something. I didn't know it'd be that fast. I expected like 30 days.
No, like a week and a half. But they and you got to think about it. Part of it is like these anti-fraud provisions and all that. But the underlying thing too is they like having your money.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like showing up to the airport. You don't know how long that line's going to be.
True.
But it's like having pre-check if you're going with the same company.
Yep. If you go
There
to
you
the
go.
company,
Otherwise, you don't know what that, you might be there for
analogy.
an hour. You might be there for 5 minutes.
yeah. And so for me, going to the same
But if you
company,
want to have fun, just opt out. There you go. Get the pat down.
just don't travel. Is what Garrett's saying.
The only fun that you get them, with the back of their hand rubbing you in places you shouldn't be rubbed, and then Stolba, them lecturing you that it's fine just to
It's a
go
free
through that. It's not
massage.
radiation. You get
It's
more
not-
radiation at the top. So there you go.
We're-
You didn't know you were going to learn that today, but you
had
just
no
did.
idea.
There you go. That's a bonus.
rabbit
It's a
hole.
bonus
We're just
money
giving
nerd
you a little
session.
treat.
Yeah. All right. Well, now what?
Okay, let's go to
These are the perks you get working
I
here
know.
that you can't put on paper
an
for money.
employer benefit.
Just pure enjoyment and laughter and side lessons.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Let's
okay.
get to let's see, Catherine's question. We'll start off with this one. So Catherine is 71 years old. So she's wanting to cash out of her 401k.
You're just trying to. You're just
I gotta
looking at me
pull
like,
it together.
Okay, listen.
Okay.
71.
So if
pulling
she's
out the 401k.
over the 59 and a half, is there anything that's different for her in pulling out her money?
She's got two things different at 71.
Yeah. So
RMDs,
You
you can
have
explain
to
that. Yeah.
at 70 and a half.
You have to take a certain amount out. Unless you like
there's a
penalty.
requirement
So-
to take that.
Required
Yeah.
minimum distribution.
Okay.
And
Well, that's the first time I heard my grandma say the F word. I literally
Have you
said,
heard her say it
at
again?
70, oh, that was the dam that broke. It was very common afterwards. But before
Okay.
that, she was holding it together. And I'm like, Grandma, you got to take this money out. Otherwise, there's a penalty. And plus your income tax. She's like, plus. And then the F word slipped. And then,
The
yeah.
rest was history.
I just remember just quick story. It was reminded of
Rabbit
this
trail
today.
number 2.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Brought my wife and son out to Chicago when he's like 9 months old, 1 year old. I don't know, 14 months old. You gotta, you'll
Young,
know better
young.
than I.
Yeah.
Young.
Okay.
But we're like driving into the city. I go pick him up and he keeps going, excuse me, truck. I'm like, what? And my wife's like, yeah. Someone cut me off on the way to the airport. So I said effing truck and had to tell him I meant, excuse me, truck. And so once he repeated the first thing, then it was excuse me, truck. So anyway, yeah, my grandma, that dam broke, and then it was the required minimum distribution pushed over the top.
I can see why.
And then plus, there's no 10% penalty after 59 and a half. So but you do have to start taking it at 70 and a half.
Yeah, it comes out as regular income. So you just made money. But you made the money years ago. You just chose to not pay tax on that money whenever you earned it.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
and so
like when
she's
you don't
probably
feel
gonna
like
be
working out, Stolba, and you're like, I'll just do that later. You're never
And then it
happy that you
happens.
waited later, right? You're like, this still sucks. Or when you're like, I'll do the dishes, take out the garbage later, like my wife asked. It's never at an opportune time later. I'm more tired, not better off.
Yes.
So like this delay thing doesn't really work
Don't
with taxes.
wait. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like my daughter who she's like, Dad, work's tough. And I'm like, if it was not work, they'd just call it fun.
Hey man, I was stuck in Guatemala yesterday, stuck there because you can't
Not a
use
bad
Italian
place to be stuck.
passports to get out of Guatemala with your kids, but you can get them there. And I just told my wife, I'm like, we could create an amazing life lesson for them right now if we just go. Like, can a 12 and 14-year-old get out of Guatemala on their own? And she didn't think it was as funny as I did in
Survival
the
school.
moment. I was just trying to make light of a situation. We're here though today. We're just,
You made it.
but like
Yeah. You made it.
I will never complain about things because man, they were doing serious work there,
Yeah.
hard work.
Yeah.
A guy was pushing an ice cream truck, like cart, up a hill because there was so much traffic with the thing. I'm like, he's not even driving, he's pushing. So when people tell the stories about walking to school uphill in snow,
ways.
up
Both ways.
No, this dude lived that life. So my kids have no way to complain when I'm asking them to do manual labor. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, another side note, just another bonus. All right, what's next?
We're all about bonuses, aren't we? Okay. So Anne, her question is, you answered my questions on Money Revealed about
welcome.
liquidating her 401k. And then you mentioned provisions and directed us, to this conversation. So she's interested in what those provisions might be. I know in the financial space, we throw around a lot of lingo.
Yep.
But what
I'll
do you
say
mean by
what they were, and
provisions?
you can explain them.
Yep.
One-time Roth conversion from a traditional 72T distribution, right? Those were the two provisions.
Keep the list short.
Yeah. So the Roth conversion we've covered in a prior episode.
Yep.
But essentially, you're going to take all that money, claim it as income, but you can get out of the 10% penalty under 59 and a half but you got to pay the
But
tax.
move it to a tax preferred environment. Under current law, tax free.
Including
They
gains.
could change that, but
if you take it out
gains,
over a certain period of time. And
72T is just a provision to avoid the 10% penalty.
Yeah. So usually the way I explain a 72T to people is, and Garrett mentions the 72T often, but the best way to kind of understand it is we talked about RMDs.
Yep. Required minimum distributions.
Required
not
minimum
distribution.
WMDs. Weapons of mass destruction, RMDs. They're closely related. Did you see this?
boom.
Flex? Like, you are very proud of yourself for that one. Look, I haven't seen you laugh this hard ever. And it was from your own
I am
joke.
kind of funny.
From your own joke, Stolba.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So required
RMDs.
minimum distributions, RMDs, or sometimes you'll hear them called MRDs, which is the same
Minimum
words,
required
which is the
distribution.
exact same thing, but in a different order, the same words.
Well, isn't that
So-
confusing? No wonder people have a hard time
Yeah.
deciphering all of this information.
If financial people use enough jargon, you just have to trust
You stay
them. And that's
confused.
how I started
Oh, yeah.
when I was 19. I'm like, I'm just going to sound super smart, even though I know what the hell I'm talking about. And then people will trust me. And then they did. And then their money did well for 2 years. And then they got their butts kicked in 2000. And I realized, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And I had to tell them that, which sucked. I didn't like telling them that, but that's why I'm still doing it. Because
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to go learn this. And they trusted me.
Yep. Okay, so
I've
just
always
let's-
respected Garrett for the fact that he owns things like that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not everyone does.
It's true. Okay, so let's just back up here.
Okay.
So
72T,
RMD,
Required minimum distribution.
and then what was the opposite?
MRD,
MRD.
minimum required distribution.
Okay, I
They're
just kept
exactly
thinking
the same.
WRD.
WMD, weapons of mass destruction.
Okay.
So that's not what we're talking about
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
So most people kind of know what those are. When you hit 70 and a half, you got to take money out of your account.
And that was like Catherine earlier.
So the way I explain a 72T to people, you can do it if you're 10 years old or 40 years old.
Going to be doing it for a long time
But-
at 10.
Yeah, exactly. But you can do it before the age of 59 and a half. And essentially what you're doing is telling the government, hey, I'm retiring.
I want to start taking the income
Yep.
from my retirement
Yep.
plan.
And you may not be retiring, quote unquote, like you're not retiring, but what you're doing is taking those same formulas and saying, I can take this amount of money proportionately without the penalty, but I have to do it until I'm of retirement age.
Right.
So if you start at 40, you got to track that stuff.
You got that for
till you're
19 and a half
59
years.
and a half.
Yeah, 19 and a half years.
But we do, Garrett and I both work with a lot of business owners, and it does make sense in certain cases because I've worked with business owners where they have $3 million in pension plans,
Yeah.
but could not write you a check for 20 grand tomorrow if you asked them to.
Now, Stolba, a really important question for you. What do you think makes me look more trustworthy? The fact that I look a little like Jesus or the gray hair?
The gray hair.
Okay, just checking. Okay, back to the topic.
I'm going with the beard
You like, yeah,
because I have
beard?
a beard too.
yeah. Not the hair because he doesn't have that.
And I don't have
The
hair.
man bun.
So, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Next question.
All right. So I guess this piggybacks off one that we had earlier, but Carol this is what she said. Thank you so much for your service to the public. I appreciate you and you give me hope. That's a great compliment.
love that.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
We're
Even
here to give you
hopefully
hope
after my
in the
jokes
midst
today,
of
there's
all of
still
this
hope.
crazy
Hope
chaos.
and laughter. What a bonus.
Yes. So she's also 71 years old. She's retired. She would say that she's lower middle class, and she's just wondering if it's a good or bad idea to start getting out money and putting it into a modest money market account that she has.
So part of that depends on her fear around the market, how she's invested.
Because she could put it in a money market inside of the plan. It doesn't have to come out of the plan. That there are fixed income options,
Yeah,
right?
so what some people don't really do a good job of, I have to explain this all the time, is separating the investment from the plan. Because it's like, well, your
One's
40
a vehicle, one's the fuel for the vehicle.
yeah. It's so your 401k can own Amazon stock or cash or whatever.
Bonds,
Bonds or
real estate,
yeah.
a business that you don't have control over.
Correct. So that's the investment. The 401k is just it's like a government category of money. It just says, hey IRS, I have not paid tax on this bucket right here.
Yeah,
so
that's why
those
it's a tax code like 401k, 457, 403B. Yeah, like you hear all these numbers because it's referencing the part of the tax code.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Did you know
to
that
me,
already? Or
I did not. I'm learning
look at us
myself.
just
And
dropping
I'm not even
knowledge.
embarrassed to admit it. I'm learning right on the
I
set
could just
with
see
you
the look
guys.
on your face. You're like, I'm learning right now.
by the time
I'm
we're
getting paid to learn.
Oh man!
yeah, by the
what a
time
prick.
we're done doing all this, you're gonna just take over our jobs. And do
Oh,
this.
she's already let me know that these are very popular videos with her involved in them. Yeah. She's like creating an agency. I'm gonna have to sign up and pay her all sorts of fees for it.
I'll have you a guest. I'll have you as a guest on my YouTube channel later.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, so you can own cash / money market inside of a 401k or an IRA.
And I would watch the tax rates. Like if they're
know.
going to go up, then you could cash it out and put it in that. If they're remaining stable, you have maneuverability,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially at 71.
And I'm one of our future episodes. I do have a plan to go over historic tax rates in our country because I don't think people really understand that they're lower than they've kind of ever been right now, and it's probably not going to stay
Yeah,
that
from
way.
1944 to
probably not gonna stay that way.
1981, they were higher than they are today.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're probably not going to stay
So-
that way forever. So if you're looking for a time to pull the trigger,
I was just gonna say now's a good
Now's
time.
not the worst time.
yeah, it's not the worst time. And then part B to that is, what's your personal situation? Are you
Yep.
making a bunch of money this year, but are you going to retire next year? Well, then maybe next year's the time,
Yep.
because tax code's probably not going to change in the next 18 months. But after that,
She has a lot of flexibility where she's
Yeah.
at in this stage.
Okay, so for someone who doesn't know what a money market account is, do one of you want to explain?
it's
that?
not an account; it's a fund.
Okay.
So
It feels a lot like a savings account, but it's really, really short-term loans. Essentially, sometimes businesses use it to make payroll during cash crunch. But they're viewed as fairly safe, but not as guaranteed as a FDIC savings
correct.
account.
Okay.
Correct. So they typically pay a higher interest rate than a savings
But
account,
not massively higher.
but like 0.1.
Not excitingly higher.
Yeah.
But they have a track record of being stable and safe.
So their debt, if you understand what bonds are, where it's like
It's a loan to a business.
you've loaned a
It's loan to the
business or
government.
a government or a company. Money markets it's a mutual fund that owns a whole bunch of that, but
Really super short
but it
term.
all has to mature in the next 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like,
All right.
but it's not like your payday places, you know,
Oh, the payday
where
loan
it's
places?
like, oh, I can cash my check now before the money's there, and they charge them double-digit high interest rates. These are more like stable, bigger entities that are doing this for major amounts of money.
So like if a savings account paid you 1%, maybe a money market pays you 1.6.
I feel
or
like
something.
this
it's
is where
not.
we should have the star come across. The more you know. Remember those?
Oh,
The more you know.
the more you know. Yeah.
Those were like public service announcements with
Was
an
that-
actor.
Yeah. Was that NBC or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So on the money market versus savings account thing, this is a total aside. You're taking it aside on jokes. I'm taking it aside on finance because I'm the finance dude.
You're the money nerd.
People get so hung up on whether their savings account pays them 1% or I'm going to switch banks because they pay 1.2. It's like, it's a savings account or a money market. Isn't the point to actually just be liquid?
Yeah, because
And
you're
are,
not, you know,
like, are you really worried about the $80 you
yeah,
sacrifice?
because the real return is if you have savings, your peace of mind, so you can be more productive, the staying power in case something that's a financial surprise comes up, a family issue, a health issue, you can handle it. But the real big return is if you have enough cash on hand, you don't have to have really low deductibles on insurances. You can raise those up and just take care of that yourself. Or you don't have to have really short-term insurance policies like disability policies. They can kick in later and you can once again save major amounts of money on that because you have that cash there, which might feel like earning 10% as an external benefit. You're not getting a higher return internally on the money market or the savings account, but you are getting a high return externally because you don't have to insure those small inconsequential things because you have cash.
which for many people is thousands a year.
Right. So,
In saving.
so then you don't have to feel like the money's burning a hole in your pocket. My dad used to say that when I would get an allowance or something, like, is that money burning a hole in your pocket? Because I want to go buy a thumb pop. Remember those ring pops? And he's like, well, you got to
know
go
ring
buy
pops.
it right now.
Fun dips?
Right. Or, fun dips. And he's
Pixie
probably
sticks?
thinking like, oh my God, imagine if this kid does a fun dip, he's going to be running around and then get grouchy and exhausted because it's going to be a sugar high.
And what's funny is I probably know the exact gas station that
Where I would have
Garrett,
bought that
that
at.
Garrett bought that
Totally.
from.
It was, I would ride my bike down the hill from Westwood, which is a place in Price, Utah, over to City Market.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you ever get Big League Chew?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But I tried to save it for the game.
I'd always
I tried to
snag a
save
little
it
bit for my brothers.
for baseball games. Like, okay, this is going to be awesome. Green
you're
M&Ms
talking
and
to
Big
two
League
people
Chew,
who
those were
play
superstitions.
baseball, so yes,
Yeah.
Big League Chew is a thing. And then if you were,
I bought some for my kids not too long ago, and they're like, this lost flavor too quick. I'm like, but it was amazingly epic for baseball, guys. You got to understand.
Okay, so I think we're good with people who are nearing retirement age, looking to cash out their 401ks.
And
So
hopefully we
we've
entertain
given
them
them some
along
good
the way.
information. Yeah, I think we have a few laughs.
All right.
with them.
Yep.
Want to continue the path to be a better investor? Make sure that you're not losing money and taking too much risk? Well, click here and learn about strengths vesting.